Welcome back, everyone. We're moving on to chapter 14. I hope you're ready with your hot beverage and your blankie all nestled and cuddled up in your uh, chair or chaise or sofa. So here we go. Chapter 14. Surprise flickered in the eyes of the man driving the lawn mower, but he didn't stop the engine. I planted my hand on my hips and leveled my gaze. If he wanted to play chicken, we'd play chicken. John Graves rumbled toward me with a mean little glint in his eyes, but I was not budging. No, I was definitely not budging. The distance between us closed to a few feet. Still not budging. The lawnmower barreled, albeit slowly, toward me. Maybe I was budging? Just then, a blur of black wings flashed between us. I heard a shout. Then the engine died. "What the heck is the matter with you, bird?" John shouted, watching dogs swoop back up into the trees, sending more leaves tumbling down. "You tried to get us both killed." "By both, do you mean you and me?" I called out. "Or you and dog? I mean the bird." John Graves shot me a look. "Me and the bird. You got 2 feet, don't you? You can get out of the way." Huh. So it was like that. "Now look at what you've done," John said to Dog, not to me, just to be clear. "This row's a mess." John had jerked the wheel when the crow startled him, putting a jagged curve in his otherwise perfectly straight line. "Don't you be asking for any of my lunch scraps today." I peered up at Dog. How many people did he have feeding him? "So you know that crow?" I asked. "Infernal bird has been pestering me like crazy the past few days, always bringing me other people's mail. I spend half my day delivering it back to the rightful owners." Suddenly John smiled. "He's not a terrible he's not terrible company, though." The smile dropped when he looked back at me. "So, you going to move, or am I going to run you over?" "Hopefully neither, Mr. Graves. My name is Bryn Warren. I know who you are. I know who everybody is in this town, and I've heard all the stories about you Warren women." Okay, then. This was going to be swimmingly. "In that case, I'll skip the introductions. I wanted to come by and offer my condolences over the passing of your sister." "Save it. I don't need to hear any of your kind words or sorry sentiments. I've got work to do." "You know, you don't have to be so rude," I snapped before I could stop myself. "And it's not normal to threaten people with the lawnmower." John Graves narrowed his eyes into a nasty squint. I matched the look with my own scowl. We glared at each other for a good long moment before he broke out in a laugh and slapped his knee. "You're a live one, aren't you? Connie must have liked you." I straightened up, taken aback. "I'm not sure if she did or not, but I'd like to think so." He nodded, a somewhat sad expression coming from his face. "She could be a tough one, all right." I took a steadying breath. I really needed to get a hold of this conversation. "Mr. Graves, again, the reason I'm here is because I wanted to talk to you about your sister." "Okay, but drop the condolences bit, girl. I'd like to believe we've started this relationship out honestly. So don't go lying to me now. I can guess why you're here." I blinked. This was the fastest relationship I had ever managed to get myself into. Hopefully, we were just friends. "We both know your aunt is on the list of suspects for the death of my sister," he went on, not waiting for me to answer. "And you're here to find out if I'd make a nice replacement for her on that list." "Well, that's true," I said uncertainly. This really wasn't how I planned this conversation to go. "But I'm also open to hearing about any other suspects you might have in mind." He laughed and slapped his knee again before setting into sitting back into the seat of his lawnmower, making the spring squeak. Sorry to disappoint, but I didn't kill her. I squinted at him again. I know, I know. That's exactly what a murderer would say, but I didn't. Even if people think I had motive. I tilted my head in question. Bah, don't you act all innocent. He folded his arms across his chest. I'm sure you've heard all about my father's will. I heard maybe you wanted the land that came with the family house. He nodded, suddenly looking much older. It's a pretty spot. I used to tell Connie when we were kids all about my big plans to have a few animals back there. A smile touched the corner of his mouth. She was a different person then. I wanted to tell him again I was sorry for his loss, even if it had been a lifetime ago, but I wasn't sure he'd take it. When the time came, though, none of that made a bit of difference. Connie had made up her mind, and there was no changing it. That's what I don't understand. And I know I have no right to be asking you this, but you had no right to stand in front of my lawnmower, but that didn't stop you. I fixed him with another look. Everyone I've talked to has made it clear how you all felt about one another, but sibling rivalries don't seem to explain the level of contempt Constance must have felt to cut you all out of your father's estate. The question had been per- the question had been percolating for a while. At first, I had been focused solely on why Rip Sr. had left everything to Constance. But now I couldn't help but wonder if maybe the bigger question was why Constance hadn't split up the estate. John's face darkened. Now you're getting into some private family business, girl. I knew it. There was more to the story. It didn't make it didn't make me feel any better though about what I was going to say. Your brother implied you held the most resentment towards Constance. My brother? You've been talking to my brother? If you're looking for a suspect, I'd start with him. He's always hated Constance, and he tried to get us to hate her too. Sure, Dad was easier on her, but that was no excuse. I shook my head. But what would his motive be? I know he wanted Graves' house, but it's in terrible shape, and the apple orchard is beautiful. The apple orchard? He let you believe that was his, did he? It's not? It all belongs to his father-in-law. And between you and me, I wouldn't be surprised if he'll be calling him his ex-father-in-law soon. Just can't believe it's taken Maureen this long to come to her senses. A tremor ran over John's face. Beatty had mentioned the brothers had fought over the same woman. I guess Rip had been the one to marry her. Time obviously hadn't healed that wound. If Rip and Maureen were getting a divorce, that certainly put a different spin on things. Rip struck me as the type of man who liked having his status in the community, but wouldn't want to live just anywhere. Now you're starting to get it, John said, studying me. But I still can't imagine Constance leaving it to him in her will. John laughed bitterly. My brother always has a plan. He's not a smart man, but he sure is cunning. He reached to turn the key in the ignition of his lawnmower. What about Mary? I knew I was pushing my luck questioning a man I had only just met like this, and I felt terrible prying into his life. But what choice did I have? What about her? John asked, not turning the key, but not moving his hand from it either. What role did she play in all this? In Connie's death? None, I would imagine. Mary's been trying for years to make things right, but some things don't deserve forgiveness. The expression on his face made me think he was describing his own feelings rather than his sister's. Now, if you don't mind, I have a lawn to cut. No, wait. What things? What happened? Instead of answering, he turned the key. John! I shouted over the roaring engine, holding up my hands. Please! He drove the machine around and didn't look back. My hands dropped to my side. Dog swooped away from the branch where he had been perched, flying in the direction of the B&B. Guess it was time to head home. I followed the large bird back to the sidewalk. My mind was full of questions, but as I watched dogs soar overhead, one in particular stood out. What would cause a crow to bring a man other people's mail? I needed to talk to Gideon. Hadn't he said something about crows being messengers of the dead? Maybe Dog was trying to give John a message. Despite what many think, witches don't have familiars in the traditional sense. Most of us do have an affinity for animals, especially cats, but they're not the demonic helpers the old witch hunters led people to believe. That being said, there were some animals who were in touch more tuned, who were a touch more tuned into the human world, and they often gravitated toward to the witches. These familiars, for lack of a better term, could often see things that the rest of us couldn't. And in Dog's case, well, he literally had a bird's eye view. Yes, I would definitely bring it up to Gideon. Maybe my uncle had some other inklings as to what went on in the secret life of Dog, aside from his stealing letters and his tormenting poor Oscar. I was so deep in thought I didn't even realize I was looking at the bulldog sitting contently on his front lawn, not even a block away. I hurried my step to stand underneath Dog perched in a tall tree. The way he was tilting his head side to side, I couldn't help but think he was weighing his options for the point of attack. Don't you even think about it, I called to him. The bird looked down at me, head still cocked. I mean it, Dog. We've talked about this. He considered me a moment longer, then off in flight, headed directly towards Oscar. No, Dog, bad crow! I broke out into a run. Unfortunately, I was a lot slower than the bird, given my really cute but impractical boots. At the sight of us both charging towards him, Oscar startled and then ran in a circle, barking like crazy. Dog seemed to take that as an invitation because he swooped down and snipped at Oscar's tail before soaring back into the sky. Why? Why are you doing this? I cried after him. This is this is a nice neighborhood. I was about to shout at Dog again when a very professional and very displeased voice called out, "What in the world is going on here?" I spotted Williams standing on the stoop outside of her front door, arms crossed over her chest. "Bryn Warren, what are you doing to my dog?"